You got to think, like, what is the hood? What is the hood? What is the hood mentality? What is the appeal of being from the hood that has so many black people in America in a tizzy? Why do so many people want to be identified with this type of mentality or behavior? And why has it been like this for so long? And my conclusion to the hood mentality is that this is like a fake rebellious type of behavior. But they make it seem like it's a revolutionary mindset, but it's really not that. It's a social, uh, it's a lack of social norms. It's when a group of people decide they just want to give up on anything, uh, any type of upstanding morals or anything like that. You're just like, you know what, screw all that. We're gonna do the opposite of that. If you want me to wear my hat to the front, I'm gonna wear it to the side. You know what I'm saying? If you want me to speak proper, I'm just not gonna do it. I'm just gonna speak everything. I'm gonna say everything in slang, and I'm gonna speak the way that we speak in our neighborhood, in our area. That we understand each other. And then it's like, oh, we're gonna dress our own way and wear sneakers and stuff like that everywhere. Hoodies and whatever. It became that type of thing. They became identified with dressing in a way that you would identify with street behavior, and that became the norm. Especially like around the '80s, because before that, people were dressing more formal. You know what I'm saying? Like, even to go to regular places, it was nothing unusual to dress in a suit and a tie, or to just wear something more proper, some slacks or whatever. And then as time went along, people started dressing more casual. And yeah, but a lot of that has to do with, you know, street culture. They're pushing this type of, they push the types of trends where they want to dress, uh, in a more, in a more, uh, casual type of way, and they don't want to dress in the more uptight. They don't want to be uptight, and they want to do what they want to do. You know what I'm saying? And so this mentality was really only, but this mentality did not spread yet to outside of these areas. There were local. If you were from Oakland, whatever street culture that was in that area was in that area. Whatever street culture was in Detroit, that was over there. Whatever street culture was in, New York, and it's specifically Brooklyn or Queens or Staten Island, or well, Staten Island, whatever, the Bronx, those that was over there. And so, as you see hip hop begin to rise, and rap begins to come up, and people start talking about what's going on in the streets where they live. Now these lyrics become popularized, and the fashion that the rappers are talking about and they have in their videos becomes popularized. So what is localized, it becomes uh, mass produced, and now everybody's casually talking about you know street things, and using lyrics from these rappers and applying it to their lives. So street culture becomes part of somebody's life who has nothing to do with any of that. You live in some good neighborhood, but you know, you're dressing in whatever. You're dressing in something that would have been previously, you know, seen as something from Oakland. You don't even know it. A certain group, a certain clique or whatever from Oakland used to dress that way, and then it got popularized by a certain rapper, and now you're out here dressing in the way that they dressed back then, and you think it's just casual streetwear, just fashion. You don't even know it, and this is uh, this is how hood culture, street culture spread about through rap music and rap videos. And then as we go on and we continue, you get another wave, you get different waves, you get crunk music, you get all this the other type of stuff, like you already know about gangster rap, you know what I'm saying? Like you get all these different types of waves. You get to Chicago, so their brain, keeps coming in, and now everybody wants to wear polo and all this type of stuff. So like the streets are now influencing mainstream culture. You know what I'm saying? People are dressing a certain way because of rappers. And I just say this to say, you know, this is pretty interesting how hip hop, and rap, like rap music, is able to influence the mainstream culture. And some, in a way it's cool, but in a way it's also detrimental because you bring a lot of antisocial behavior and things that are cool in the hood, ways of talking and behaving that's cool in the hood, but you're taking it, you're bringing it to the mainstream. So you got people that live in good neighborhoods trying to act that way, and that's not the way to be. You know what I'm saying? That's supposed to be something left in that area. And then you also have like different hood mentalities mixing together. So someone, the way they live in Cali, the gang banging and the way they do it, other people trying to do that in other hoods, and you're not supposed, that's you're supposed to leave that over there. But because it's been so glamorized, not everybody wants to be, acting like how they act in Cali, and then in Chicago too. People want to go out here and act like Chicago dudes and do all the drill rap and you know brag about killing on their ops and all that type of stuff. So that then people want to be also like these Atlanta dudes too. The way they're acting, and you just gotta realize that it's not fruitful to act like that for most people. You know what I'm saying? In the past, people knew to leave stuff. Not everybody, but many people knew to leave that stuff where it was at. You know, you left. When you were done watching the video about, whatever was going on in that area, you left it over there. And you were like, thank God I don't live over there. Mm. But now people are quick to adopt, you know, stuff that's going on in Chicago and try to talk like them and, do all the things that's going on over there. And, like I said, it could be a detrimental type of thing, mentality to have. And, you know, you got to realize that people try to trivialize, these ghetto uh, mentalities and make it seem like it's whatever. It's just, just a way of expression. It's like, nah, like you got to be careful as a regular person trying to behave that way, because that mentality is going to get you caught up in something that you might not be ready for. There's danger to acting that way. You know what I'm saying? Like those people over there, they're used to acting that way, and they live in a certain community, you know, where they can get away with acting like that. Like you were a regular person in a gated community or a well-to-do community, or just a regular average, non, ghetto community, you can't really act that way, or it's not really do you really want to act that way? Is it really cute to act that way? I don't know. Is it really a good idea to put tattoos on your face? Mm. Maybe dyeing your hair is one thing, but you can get rid of that. Do you really want to, throw a gang signs on social media? Do you really want to, do all this type of stuff? Like, uh, you know, it's not really a good idea to me. But anyway, back to, the point, you know, how did these hoods come about? How did these hoods come about and the hood mentality come about? And like I said, this is a mentality that comes from when everybody, or when many people in the community, in a certain, or not even like, you can't even call it a community, just people that happen to be in that area decide they just want to, turn away from just acting civil. They just want to, create a hostile environment, and they agree to these types of rules. You know, you know, people look down on, trying to act proper or speak properly. People don't really want to, take care of things in the community. Things become dilapidated. People become cool with that. It's something to brag about. Going to jail becomes like whatever. You know what I'm saying? Doing drugs is, obviously, all around you. You know what I'm saying? Like, staying in school is not something that's really pushed. People become, okay with, crime around them. People getting robbed and all that, not saying nothing. It just becomes that's what these areas become. And so then when all that happens, anybody that's worth a damn gets out of there, and you have a rundown situation. And that's what these hoods are. And that's what the mentality is. And then they breed that type of mentality, and it doesn't matter if they leave that area, they're gonna bring it with them. So you have some people that might make some money, but they still have this mentality, and so they take it with them somewhere else, and they bring that, chaotic hood mentality elsewhere. And that's what you have going on. And that's why, money doesn't matter. Money's not going to change these people. Um, Moving somewhere else is not going to change them. You know what I'm saying? This is an upraising issue. This is an issue that has to be dealt with by cultural, like has to be a cultural reset in order to fix this type of mentality. And it has to be like you got to lock a lot of these people up. Like, to me, like in areas like Chicago and certain parts of California, you just got to lock all these people, like anybody involved with gangs, all the leaders, lock them all up. And then you show all the younger ones like, yo, this is all it's gonna take you to, and lock all anybody associated over like the age of 27, lock them all up, if even maybe younger. And you just get everybody to realize that, what I'm saying, like, you're not going to be able to brag about being in a gang and doing all this other stuff. That's how I would do it. And then you go out and you know you, you put in real laws to, you know to stop these areas from being dilapidated. There has to be a quota met. You can't have, all these rundown buildings, and you can't have, like, saying graffiti everywhere, and you can't have, like crackheads running around and all this type of stuff. You got to make sure things are kept up to a certain standard. And, this will help, this mentality, fix this mentality, and it'll get things on the right track. So that's just, that's what I see as the solution for the hood mentality. you know, and how to get things back on track. Because you know, it's been it's been a long issue. The hood mentality in the black so-called community, uh, which is really just a coalition of different hoods and different uh, different sections of town that have all different types of issues. Now, of course, you have good, well-meaning black communities, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be more hoods and you know bad parts of town that black people congregated than the good parts of town. And then yeah, other black people that don't partake in this, they got the hell out. And, they live in mixed communities. They're just they're doing better for themselves. While everybody else that's just on bullshit, they just they don't want any solutions to anything, so they just stay where they're at. To make the same excuses. They do drugs, they sell drugs, they partake in violent behavior, chaotic behavior. You know what I'm saying? Like they do whatever they want, and they breed that mentality to the young ones around them. They make them think this stuff is cool, and this is the culture. So when you see like young girls twerking, or you see young dudes walking around with guns, bragging about this and that, and they're like everyone's like, oh, where's it coming from? It's coming from just the culture around them. This is not a mystery. They're not just watching social media. They actually living in these communities where their whole lives they seen people around them brag about behaving this way, and they never told, oh, don't do this and don't do that. It was encouraged to behave this way. So now they're coming up, and now this is now they're behaving the way that they have seen it. That's what's going on. And then on top of that, to add to that, the people who are supposed to be older and know better, instead of trying to help and push a cultural reset button, they're just making excuses for them. Oh, white kids do this. Oh, there's other people do that. Instead of trying to be like, yo, this is not cool. We got to find out a way to change this behavior that we're seeing. So that's so prevalent in our communities. People just like fuck it. Like, what I'm saying? Who cares that, a 13-year-old girl is twerking and, acting a fool in school? Who cares that a young dude is walking around with a Pooh Shiesty and Tech Fleece hoodie, and it's like 90 degrees in the summer? Fuck it. You know what I'm saying? And so, that's what's going on. Everybody wants to do nothing to really stop. Everyone, just wants to do nothing and say nothing until it's too late. When they finally get gunned down, or, what I'm saying, they get some type of uh, bad reaction to something bad happens from their behavior. A bad outcome comes from their behavior. Then everybody wants to start, oh, the streets, the streets doing this, the streets are this, I can't believe it. Oh my gosh. Like, shut the hell up. A lot of this stuff is avoidable if you have a culture that looks out for its people. And black culture, ultimately, especially hood culture, which is the majority of modern black culture, does not do this. Okay? And no one wants to tackle that. Nobody wants to really, you know, be a real adult and and call this type of stuff out. Everybody wants to be making excuses and coping, and until a non-black person says something, then everybody wants to act a fool, and that's what we got out here. And so that's the community we have, and that's why you have to stop it. Y'all, some of y'all are asking where the elders at, where the elders at. Them elders are long dead. They are dead. People were calling this out back in the day, first of all, criticized and called out of their name. So any elder who gave a damn, who would have seen this, is checked out. They're dead or they're checked out. And they're not trying to debate with any of these dummies out here who they already know they're not going to listen. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, there's no elders, there's no guidance. It's chaos. You know what I'm saying? Bad behavior is rewarded. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's impulsive, no control. Um, yeah, no understanding of ramifications. So you have people doing things, thinking that they can just do whatever they want, and then surprised when ramifications for their behavior comes, and then they want to look around confused. And this is a problem, and it needs to be uh, talked about. Like I said, there needs to be some type of reset button to get rid of this type of mentality, so that we can finally have productive black communities in place of this. And that's just my take. And if y'all feeling this way, let me know what's up.